Not going to lie, these are a labour of love, but they are worth it. Hi everyone, it's Tasha and welcome to another Wednesday recipe video, or whatever day you're watching this on. And today we are going to be making桃花酥, Chinese peach blossom pastries. Timestamps are down below in the description if you want to skip the initial blah blah, but stick around if you want to hear a little bit about what we're making first. These jujube paste stuffed pastries are very similar, almost the same in fact as the桃花酥that I made a couple of months ago. Those are very traditional Beijing pastries, they go back a couple of hundred years at least. But these have been shaped to look kind of like peach blossoms, hence the name. It's the same kind of pastry and the same kind of jujube paste filling, just has a different shape and different colour. Traditionally I believe they're made with 5 petals because peach blossoms tend to have 5 petals, but you can make however many petals you like. I like 6, I just think it's pretty. And if you make 5 petal pink flowers in a certain way, they just end up looking like cherry blossoms. It doesn't really matter though, it's all down to your preference. Now when I say it's a labour of love, it's not difficult to make, but it is time consuming, especially if you're making the jujube paste from scratch, which I will be doing. If you happen to live in China or in any country where you can buy ready-made jujube paste that's specifically for filling pastries like this, then please do. It will save you a few hours. But if like me you can't get a hold of the ready-made stuff, don't worry, I will show you how to do it from scratch. In fact, I tend to do the filling part the night before because I just like to get that out of the way. But the technique itself is really easy, just takes a while. So with all that said, let's go to the kitchen and see how it's done. First we need to make our jujube paste. So here I have 370 grams of dried jujubes, also known as red dates or Chinese dates. And very important, these are the seedless ones. I'm going to cover them with hot water. They're going to float, but that's normal. Then I'm going to cover this and I'm going to simmer it for about 45 minutes to an hour. Sometimes this only takes me half an hour to make, but it depends on how dry your jujubes are. Once I used a really old shriveled bag and it did take a full hour to soak. And another time I used slightly fresher ones, only took half an hour, so I'd say around 45 minutes. Keep an eye on it, make sure it doesn't boil over because we just want a light simmer, and this is going to soak our jujubes and then it'll make them easier to peel because we are going to need to peel these. It's been about half an hour for me and these are nice and juicy looking, so I'm going to turn the heat off. And now, because we have to peel them next, we're going to let these cool down, otherwise they're going to be way too hot to handle. Now that our soaked jujubes are cool enough to handle, we need to peel them. And I have a little bowl here because what I find is when I peel them, the little skins get stuck to my fingers, so that will just help them rinse them off. I'm not going to lie, this part is a little bit annoying. Sometimes the skins won't come off in one piece, just like this one. But stick with it and you will be rewarded with a very smooth paste at the end. Also, there's another way of doing this. You can actually pop these in a blender. The only trouble with that is you also have to add a little bit of water. And adding water thins down the mixture, which also means that it's going to take longer to cook down into a paste. Oh, look, a nice long bit of skin there, that was good. But yes, if you go for the blending route, then sure, that part will take less time, but the actual cooking down of the paste part will take more time, so it depends on what you prefer to waste your time on. No, this isn't a waste of time, this is absolutely worth it, I promise you. Oh my gosh, that literally took me an hour. These were not an easy batch to peel, but that's how it goes. You never can quite tell how old the bag of dried jujubes are, and these were quite old. The skin was crackly, so most of them didn't come off cleanly in one swipe, which is what usually happens. I just got unlucky. Anyway, now we're going to cook these down, and we are going to be happy that we didn't take the coward's way out and blend them, because this part is actually going to be quite fast. Now we have our peeled jujubes in a nice big wok. We're going to turn the heat on to about medium. We're going to add about roughly 2 tablespoonfuls of a flavourless vegetable oil, cooking oil. And we're just going to cook these and mush these down until they form a nice dark paste. This takes about 15 minutes depending on how high or low your heat is. I wouldn't turn it up too high because then you could risk burning your jujubes, and we don't want that, otherwise they'll be nasty and bitter. But if you're too low a heat, then it will take forever, so a nice medium heat, and keep mushing and stirring. And we are just about done. Now that it's a nice dark dough, it's more dough than paste. We have dried it out and it's holding its shape, and we can fold it up and it's moving as one entity. We are done. Let's put this in a bowl. Turn the heat off first actually. Now we need to let it cool down, but we don't want it to dry out, so we're going to lay a little cling film over the top so it doesn't form any hard skins. And we're going to let it cool down completely. Now that our jujube paste is nice and cool, we're going to roll it into balls. I actually chilled this in the fridge overnight. I like to make the filling in advance because it does take a while to make. I just like to form it into a ball so it's a bit more even, split it in half. And I'm just going to roll this into 10 balls. So let's take a chunk. I do this quite roughly. You can always add a little bit to other sections if you have bigger balls and smaller balls. As you can see, it's very easy to roll. I'm going to cover these and pop them back in the fridge to keep them moist, stop them from drying out. And now we're ready to make our doughs. Now we're going to make our pastry, and remember this is two types of pastry mushed together, an oil dough and a water dough. This creates really nice layers. Actually they both have oil/fat in them, but only one has additional water in. So we're going to start by making the oil dough. Here I have 150 grams of plain flour. I'm going to add 80 grams of melted vegetable shortening. Excuse me, lost my voice, had a frog in my throat. This is Trex, by the way. I use Trex in the UK. You can use Crisco if you're in the US. And I'm going to squeeze in a little pink food colouring. Well, a lot of pink food colouring, to be honest. Oops. Yep, that was a lot. And now I'm going to mix it up until it forms a dough. And although it does seem quite wet at first, what happens is the dough starts to absorb that vegetable fat and it goes more solid, so don't worry if it seems gooey at first. Just going to set the spoon aside for a second because we're going to use it again in a minute. We're going to transfer to our hands. And just like with our jujube paste, we're going to divide this into 10 and roll them into 10 balls. And these are oil balls done, they don't have to be perfect. Now I'm going to reuse this bowl actually, because it doesn't really matter. We're going to make our water dough. And it's going to be a little bit more than our oil dough, so here I have 250 grams of plain flour. To that I'm going to add 115 grams of melted shortening, so again a little bit more than before. I'm also going to add 30 grams of icing sugar. Just clean that up because I made a mess as usual, and 65 milliliters of water. And we're going to mix this up too. I'm using the same spoon, it doesn't matter. Now, we only coloured the oil dough, and that's actually what's going to give it its colour, because we're going to roll it out so thinly that the colour is going to show through. And actually, you can colour the oil dough different colours, and some people do, so you can have different coloured flowers. You can make different flowers with them. But we're sticking to the traditional pink today. And it doesn't matter that my spoon has a bit of pink on it anyway, because it'll all be pink in the end. Again, we're going to transfer to our hands once it starts to form that dough. Give it a light knead. And you've probably guessed already, especially if you've watched my other videos making this sort of pastry, we're going to divide this into 10. That was weird. We're going to divide this into 10 and we're going to roll them into 10 balls too. And now, of course, if you remember, whenever we make this sort of pastry again, we're going to get this into there. So take one water dough ball, flatten it out, pop an oil ball into the middle, and we're going to close it up like a dumpling. And we're just going to do this again and again. And now we are literally ready to roll. So what we're going to do is we're going to take one of our dough balls. We don't really need any extra oil or flour because it's very oily, and we're going to roll it up nice and flat, and you're going to start to see that pink coming through. And yes, it's absolutely okay if the pastry breaks, that is normal. And now we're going to roll it up into a sausage. We're going to pop this on the side, and I'm also going to cover it with cling film so it doesn't dry out as we work. Place that under our cling film, and now we're going to let these just rest for 10 minutes. Whoops, I'm bashing my tripod all around. Just going to let these rest for 10 minutes because they've been through a lot. The gluten's going to be a bit tough in the flour. So let's just let them chill out for 10 to 15 minutes just for that gluten to relax so we can do the second roll. Once they've had a bit of a rest, we're going to do it again. This time we're going to place one lengthways, roll it out again, and we're going to roll it back up, and this is going to be a slightly fatter sausage. And as you can see, we're starting to see more of that pink, so let's do that for all of them. Now that we've done that again, we're going to let them rest for 10 to 15 minutes. Now we're going to preheat our oven to 160 degrees C, which is a bit cooler than normal, but we don't want to make our pastries too brown. We want that pretty pink colour to shine through. Now we've got our date balls back, our jujube balls, and now it's time to fill our dough with them. So we're going to take one of these sausages. I already did one before. It wasn't filming, so let's do that again. I'm going to place it seam side up. I'm going to make a dent in the middle with my finger. I'm going to use that fault to bring up the ends into the centre, like so. And I'm going to press it down. You can use a rolling pin too for this stage, but at this stage I just prefer to use my hands. And we're going to flatten it out because we want to get one of the jujube balls into this, also like a dumpling. Pop a jujube ball in, and just like before, we're going to dumplingify it. Wow, really can't speak. There we go. And again, you can use a rolling pin, but I prefer to use my hands because I have more control over how neatly I can make this little patty. So we're flattening it down just a little bit, but not too much. Also make sure that it's not spilling out of the bottom. And now, a bit like we made our Táohuā酥, those are the white spoked ones, we're going to just mark with our fingernails like a little round in the centre, maybe 1.5 centimetres in diameter, just to mark where we're not going to cut into. We're going to take some clean kitchen scissors, and I'm going to snip, you know what, I'm going to snip 6. Traditionally, for peach blossoms it's 5 petals, but I quite like the look of 6. And since it's pink, if you do 5, it also kind of looks like a cherry blossom, so which is a little bit different. So I'm going to do 6 snips. And to make our petals, what I like to do is I like to put a dent in the middle of the outside of one, and then I like to pinch. Like that. So it makes a little petal shape. That is so pretty. And you do that all the way around. This is nearly done. I'm going to place this on a baking tray that I've lined with some non-stick baking paper, and I'm going to do the same for the rest of them. Aren't these already gorgeous? But we're not quite done yet. We've got a little bit more decoration to do. Here I have 1 whole egg yolk. I'm just going to break it up a little bit, and I'm going to use it to lightly paint the centres of our flowers. And finally, I just have a small handful of sesame seeds, which I'm going to sprinkle in the middle of them. And now we're going to pop these in the oven for 15 to 20 minutes just before they start getting brown. We want to keep that lovely colour, we don't want them going brown. Ew, these are sizzling as you can hear. Right now we're going to let these cool down completely because they are super hot, and once they're cool we can enjoy them. Aren't these just so pretty, almost too pretty to eat? And you can look at all of those lovely layers inside of that flaky pastry, lovely. Some people, what they do, instead of doing the line, the fold in the middle of the petal and then pinching it to create an extra fold, instead of doing that they just pinch it without creating an extra fold and then use a blunt knife and score lines coming from the centre of the flower up each petal like that. I thought that would be overkill to do it with mine. I thought this was enough. It's totally up to you how you decorate your flowers. They are, after all, your flowers, no one else's. I almost kind of want to wear them as a hair accessory. I would get many crumbs in my hair though. So what I'm going to do, whoops, I'm going to snap off a petal, which is very easy to do. I love eating these petal by petal. Give you a quick look on the inside, lots of lovely layers, and I'm going to eat one. Cheers! That is seriously good. The pastry melts in your mouth, it is so delicate, and the natural sweetness of the jujubes is absolutely perfectly balanced. And look at the bottom, by the way. Not as pretty as the top, but still quite nice. So there you go, Chinese peach blossom pastries. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's recipe video, and I hope you'll join me next Wednesday for my next one. Get the full written recipe on my blog tashcakes.com, follow me on Instagram, I'm tashcakes.tastes, and find me on TikTok too, I'm tashcakes there too, but my handle is food in slow motion. Subscribe if you want to see more, give this video a like if you liked it to help other people find it, comment down below if you'd like me to make anything in particular, and I will see you all next time. Be good, be nice, and have a good week. And I have to do the hoovering.